Hello, hello. So, another episode of the MBG Chats, which is a sub-series of the Mastering Business Growth podcast. And today I'm joined by Bobby Ashman, who is the founder of Counter Coffee. And without further ado, Bobby, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself, give us a bit of a whirlwind tour of who Bobby is and a little bit about Counter Coffee. And stage is yours, my friend.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, thanks for having me. My name is Bobby Ashman. I'm the founder of Counter Coffee. Been running Counter Coffee for the last couple of years. So my career to date has always been in startups and FMCG and like direct-to-consumer businesses at Gusto and Graze and at Presto Coffee. And then 2 years ago I started Counter Coffee. The kind of USP and the key angle for us is it's specialty coffee, but it is solving this big black hole that is caffeine within coffee. I found it quite strange that caffeine is the element of coffee that really kind of drives us back to coffee. It's kind of gives us the boost, it gives us the dopamine hit. And in addition to obviously the flavor being primary, it's the caffeine that we crave. But if you go to your high street coffee shop, if you go to a roaster, if you look in the supermarket, no one's able to tell you how much caffeine is in the coffee that you're drinking. And that's the big gap that Counter Coffee is here to solve. Caffeine affects all of us differently, and it's quite a personalized response that we get to it. So I think at least 10% of people are really sensitive to it, but all of us tend to manage our caffeine throughout the day. Not many people continue to drink caffeine all the way up to bedtime. So Counter Coffee is helping people navigate their caffeine and optimize their caffeine intake. And we do that through our range of coffees. So we've kind of tasted hundreds of coffees and tested loads of coffees for the different caffeine levels, and then narrowed that down to a combination of ones that taste best and ones that have a really nice kind of amount of caffeine that fits well into a range. So from really high, medium caffeine, half caff, decaf. So we're helping people kind of enjoy their coffee, but to do so with a lens on caffeine and kind of coffee being a functional product. And that's the niche that we're kind of diving into.
That's a really interesting point, actually. And you've said the word functional. And I think the word functional is really important when it comes to something like caffeine, something that gives us a hit or something that we feel needs to boost our energy. And you might be able to debunk a little bit of a myth for me, Bobby, if you would. Because I heard from another health sort of practitioner, I guess, or whatever you would call them, that caffeine acts as a bit of a tiredness blocker rather than giving us energy. Is that true, or to what extent is that true? To what extent is that a myth? Like debunk that myth for me, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right. Caffeine basically blocks our adenosine receptors. So it's adenosine which is builds up throughout the day. So when you're feeling tired, it's because the adenosine levels are building up. So caffeine blocks those, which means that your body isn't realizing that your tiredness levels are building up. So it's not giving you energy. It's like you say, it's kind of the converse. It is reducing your sensitivity to tiredness, but it works in quite a few interesting ways. So as well as reducing tiredness, it does release dopamine. So it does give you this kind of mental boost, and it definitely makes you feel kind of positive because of that dopamine hit. So it works in a few different parts, and it does so in really interesting ways. And that kind of layers into having the right amount of caffeine, and having the right amount of caffeine probably at the right time of day to kind of get the benefit. And then you can really get the kind of the joy out of the coffee, and you can avoid some of the downsides of having too much caffeine or too little caffeine. So definitely people will be aware of kind of getting jitters, which will be when you've had too much caffeine, you kind of got the shakes, you're struggling to focus, and you've got this energy, but you can't really kind of focus it in on anything. So that's having too much caffeine. It also affects people's mental health in good ways and in bad ways, depending on how much they have, as well as obviously sleep is a big factor as well. So like you say, there's all these functional benefits you can get from caffeine and enjoying your coffee, but it's just using it in the right way to maximize those benefits. And that's the piece of the puzzle that has been really overlooked that we're trying to tackle.
And I mean, you kind of alluded to it at the beginning, but how specifically then are you tackling that with Counter Coffee? Are you just being more transparent about it, or are you giving people healthy tips or personalization tips on how to manage their caffeine? Like how does Counter Coffee go about that?
Yeah, so first and foremost, it's kind of curating a range that has different caffeine levels for different requirements. So there's people out there who want a really strong coffee that's to 200 plus milligrams, where 400 milligrams is your max sort of healthy daily allowance. So our wake up espresso is sort of half your max daily allowance in one coffee, which is quite high. People who would like that because they don't have super high sensitivity, or they really need a big boost. Or they might be doing things like endurance events or exercise where the caffeine kind of has a positive impact. So we have that end of the scale, and then we graduate all the way down through to like a really good quality decaf. And then on our package, we make it really clear exactly of your RDA and per drink how much caffeine is you're going to be consuming. So there's the transparency element as well as how we have defined our range. Coffee has definitely suffered from overcomplication of naming conventions, and people get lost in the world of coffee. They don't know the origin of the coffee tends to be first and foremost, but to most consumers, the origin of the coffee doesn't mean anything to them, whether it's Brazilian, Costa Rican, or Ethiopian. So the way we've named the coffees is trying to do it by time of day. So the wake up espresso is very much for your morning coffee where you might want something more strong. We have an uplift espresso or a refuel filter where you're targeting the middle of the day. So when you're having that midday slump, you don't want a coffee quite as strong, but you do want something that's going to help you through maybe post lunch or pre lunch. We then have our easy afternoon half caff. So as the day progresses, you will want to taper your caffeine intake to not affect your sleep. So a half caff is perfect for that occasion where you still want a boost, you still want something in the afternoon that's a treat, but you don't want to be affecting your sleep. And then our decaf is our all-day decaf, so you can have it whenever you want, and it's not going to affect anything in that sense. So we're helping people navigate the range, combining that with nice graduated caffeine strengths, and then as much as possible throughout the journey, we're kind of doing the education piece on the science, what might be best for some people, the fact that it is very personalized, how your body reacts to caffeine, and sort of sprinkling that in. And then that's kind of the starting point. From there, there's so much more personalization we can bring in and innovation. But as the business is establishing, we're really kind of nailing that core kind of messaging and solving that problem for specific customers.
Love it. I love that idea of having a coffee for specific moments of the day, like, you know, that with the wake up boost and then maybe even tapering it down, because I think it's really not a one size fits all, and you shouldn't be having the same amount of caffeine throughout the day, like in every cup of coffee. Like it definitely, you know, I'll say that now. I'm not a massive coffee drinker. I like a cup of coffee, but I'm more of a tea drinker. But again, there's no kind of like, I need a really strong cup of tea in the morning. There's nothing really out there kind of like doing that. And I think that's really good that you're doing that with coffee. A little bit about you then, because you mentioned a big brand there. You mentioned like DTC, and then you mentioned like Gusto. What was it that you were doing at Gusto then?
Yeah, so I think I was employee number 7 there, I want to say. So yeah, really early days. It was very scrappy and sort of getting off the ground. So I had come from investment banking. I joined Gusto in like, well, it was proper startup. So you do a bit of everything. I was doing a bit of finance, I was doing a bit of marketing, helping out wherever I could. And I was there for a couple of years before it really took off massively. But I could see that the idea was there. The meal prep idea was kind of genius, and it's turned into a massive $1 billion kind of company. And yeah, part of me wish I stuck around. I was trying to figure out where I was going to get the most joy out of my career. I think the danger of being in a startup, especially early on in your career, is that you can get pigeonholed into wherever they need you rather than where you want to go. I wanted to go into product development, something entrepreneurial, but where I had control. And stepping into Graze, they were kind of reaching maturity at that point. They'd gone through a massive rise, huge growth, like massively led the subscription wave. And I felt like there was so much I could learn there, as well as really getting hands-on in product development, which is where my interest lied. So
Yeah.
yeah, I stepped away from Gusto and moved over to Graze and was there for 6 or 7 years.
I mean, one thing, having done quite a few of these now, like spoken to many entrepreneurs in different settings, one thing that is becoming really true is that it's that experience before that is really helping people launch their own companies. Like, and it's bringing that experience from all of those different settings, whether it be a scrappy startup like Gusto back in the day or a mature one like Graze. There's something to take from each of those pots and to bring it into something like Counter Coffee. What lessons specifically are you bringing to Counter Coffee from those two examples, specifically Gusto and Graze? Like, what are the positive aspects that you're just can't let go of and you think are working well for you in Counter?
Yeah, so I mean, I enjoy being part of a small team, and obviously starting your own business, you're kind of fundamental to that. But there's something to be said for small, agile businesses that can iterate really quickly and can problem solve really quickly. And then that's obviously even kind of focused further when it's just you and you're just running that business, and you can duck and dive and make those changes. But I've always liked, so both of those businesses were direct to consumer, subscription orientated. I've enjoyed the fact that those work well in small businesses that are growing, where you have repeat revenue. You can interact with your customers as frequently as you like and improve upon your products, and it helps you grow a business where you're not overly reliant on retailers who might ask more of you than you want to give, or kind of being, hands-on in a market, kind of face to face, where you're trading your time as much as your product with consumers. So I really enjoyed both those aspects of them, and the fact that they were food and drink kind of specific. So I like hands-on tangible products that people can try and enjoy and give feedback on. Coming from investment banking, where there's nothing tangible there and things are, you don't get a sense that you're adding value in a physical sense. It's really nice to be kind of speaking to suppliers, kind of finding the best coffees, tasting coffees, chatting to farmers and seeing what they're doing from a sustainability perspective. You feel like there's more that you can bring to the story because of the tangibility of the product. And it's nice to kind of continue that.
Love that. It's so strange actually because I've spoken to other product led entrepreneurs as well, and they've gone completely the other way, and they like to go retail first, and they want that sort of I think it's a little harder to get there to get to retail because you need those doors opening, but once you've got them, as much as you're running on razor thin margins, there's almost a security in the revenue, and you're always waiting for that next order for sure, but it's massive orders, huge
Yeah.
orders, where with D2C subscription, you are working on bigger margins, but you're fighting for every sale, but every sale is a little easier fought for than the big retail ones. So coming to into Counter Coffee then in the journey that you're on now, you said you're about a couple of years in, and what's that journey look like for you so far then? I mean, give us sort of seasonality of business, like what was the beginning like, what was the middle like, and where are you now? Like, obviously we probably could talk about this all day, but in terms of that beginning journey of going into this with the ideation and moving into selling that first product, how quick was that? How quick were you able to get product to market and get your first sale?
It was pretty quick to go live. I'd worked in a similar coffee business, so that helped really give me kind of a foundation. I had to get over the ego side of things where I wanted to go live quickly and not worry about perfection, because if I had, I probably still wouldn't be live now. And so I had to get things live knowing that, okay, the branding didn't look the best, the website didn't look the best, photography could be improved, everything could be improved, but I need to get things live. And then I think one of the real turning points was chatting to as many people as possible and really honing in on the niche and the differentiator. Coffee is super competitive. I knew there was this big opportunity within the caffeine level. I just needed to be able to explain it to customers and really bring it to life. And the danger within coffee is you just get lost. And so I wanted the strong USP, and I felt confident that I had it. And that really helped me kind of get going. I start speaking to people who they might want to buy coffee from their local roaster, but if they're having a negative experience with their caffeine, or they've got more complex requirements, they would avoid their local roaster and come directly to Counter Coffee because the roaster can't solve the problem that we are. So that got things moving. I launched on Amazon first and then the website. Amazon helped feel like I was getting traction and there was kind of scalability there. It's getting the views. The website I've been fairly tentative with, knowing that I want the messaging to be really strong. I want to feel like the products are clearly defined and communicating the benefits. I want the journey to be really positive. So coffee is very seasonal. So really from now through to March, April are the great selling months for coffee. Over the summer, things slow down as people are out and about more and they drink a little bit less coffee. So you have to capitalize on these winter periods, and then each year it's kind of optimized through the summer and then try and capitalize and sell as much through the winter. And as we get to now, I'm really kind of been laying foundations for the last couple of years and improving on sort of the key metrics that are going to make the business work and profitable quickly. Things like average order value, the lifetime value, what the acquisition cost looks like. Now really is that sort of make or break time where it's commit to serious marketing spend, scale up and kind of keep pushing, which is both super exciting and slightly terrifying in kind of equal measure. But I feel like it's in a very strong place and really it's just finding the right creative from an ad perspective to keep scaling things.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned some things there which are quite close to my heart as a marketer and a performance marketer specifically. Like, that it's knowing your numbers in fact, but you got to find out some way or another, haven't you, like what that average order value is, and that, the lifetime value, you're not really truly going to know that within a short amount of time. That's going to take time to understand. But like you said, laying the foundations is super important, and taking the time to do that is really important as well. I guess then you've already alluded to the next stages then in terms of committing to scaling up. And just for those that are uninitiated, the uninitiated with D2C and what scaling up involves, other than performance marketing, what other things are you looking at when it comes to scaling up? Is it feedback loops with customers? Is it fulfillment? Is it, what are the things that are really top of mind for you right now when it comes to scaling?
Yeah, so the groundwork for scaling has been put in place from an operation and supply chain perspective. So all the coffee is roasted to order, which is amazing. So it lands to customers within a few days of being roasted. So it's really fresh and it's roasted continually. So from an operational perspective, that is humming. And I tick on my plate a lot of the fulfillment side of things. And over the summer, I've managed to move that over to a third party purely because I needed that time to focus on growing the business. So I really liked being hands-on with every order. I'd write a note. I'd personalize each order, but it comes at the cost of being able to get the business to where it needs to be to kind of be sustaining. So that's been a big change that's happened over the summer, and now it's in a really strong place. I built out Klaviyo sort of flows and campaigns, so there's a degree of automation there. And I've just, hopefully next week, will be put in place a subscriber reward scheme. So the longer someone is with us, the more rewards they'll get, whether that's a free taster of coffee, a free tin that they can reuse that sits on their shelf. Try and get people to feel like they're being valued for sticking with us for a long time rather than us always kind of going after the new customers. We really want to kind of nurture the subscriber for the long term. And then the key part really is using Meta to kind of scale up our subscribers and the visits we get to the website. So that's where probably 70% of my focus is going, is into that side of things. And do so, it's self-funded from savings. So focusing on profitability is key. Which is why it's kind of one step forward, one step backwards sometimes. But now is the time to sort of keep building on that and kind of get over the hurdle and push things through to where it needs to be. And I think everything is in place to do that.
I'm smiling because if I ever wanted to sort of create like a, and I mean this in a positive and an endearing way, like if I ever wanted to create a D2C bingo game where all the key words were being said, I think you'd have just nailed it. You'd have got a full house there. Like, the loyalty programs, the nurturing of customers, the fact that you personalized orders at the beginning and you were on the ground fulfilling the product yourself. Like, I think this is the true lesson in launching a D2C business. You have to be so close to your customers that you can smell them a little bit and, you can understand their wants and needs, but it sounds like you're really bringing that experience to Counter Coffee as well, and the challenges ahead of you. I guess, do you think because of the experience you've had, it's making the journey of Counter Coffee a little bit more, like you're not really sort of mucking around in the dark trying to find the light switch. You do have an element of a light at the end of the room because you've been through this before. You know what it entails. Does it still feel messy and scrappy, or do you feel like, no, I have a pretty linear set of priorities to go through here?
So it, I think I know I have the confidence that everything I'm making from a product perspective, I'm ticking all the boxes, and I feel like there's improvements upon everything I've worked out historically. Everything there is, feel like, great, I've got a tick mark. That said, when you're spending your own money and your savings and there is a time limit, there is definitely a fear factor of, I don't want this money to go to waste. I want to create something that's really good and I don't want to fritter it away. And so there's always a degree of uncertainty, particularly around landing kind of persuasive, creative and ads that are going to work and speak to the right people. That's the area where it's like, if I can nail that, everything else is there to underpin it. And so there's a confidence in everything apart from, right, let's scale, knowing that I'm being told, direct C2C businesses are getting more expensive, acquiring customers is getting more expensive, it's more competitive. So that side is a challenge and everything else is falling into place quite nicely, I'd say, being really, really honest.
Sounds really good. I mean, it's nice to have that honesty as well because, we were kind of getting to the point where this all just sounded very, very predictable and actually there was very sort of, but it's that raw honesty. I think that's really important to anyone who listens to this because the entrepreneurial game is not necessarily predictable. Never mind the D2C online business journey as well. And I think you've kind of encapsulated that quite well there, actually, without it sounding. So obviously you mentioned you using your own savings because funding was going to be another question that I wanted to ask you. And, I guess without sort of revealing too much, but for those that are going out and launching their own D2C business, what kind of level of investment can they expect to be putting in? I mean, I would add some nuance to this because that sounded like quite a loaded question, but, from your experience using your own money or like using external capital, what kind of investment should people expect to make in their own business? And I use the word should very loosely because obviously we don't want to tell people what to do, but at the same time, give them guidance on what they can expect. Like, what's the realistic view of this?
Yeah, so from my side, coffee doesn't have massive barriers to entry. So you are looking at some physical stock. You're looking at things like some graphic design work, a little bit of website work. The barriers to entry to starting a business now are so low compared to where they would have been 10, 15 years ago that you can pretty much build your own website. You can take your own photographs, use ChatGPT to edit them. There are a lot more businesses set up that will get you off the ground from a product perspective, that you are not necessarily having to go out and, say, invest in loads of machinery or tons of stock. So that side of things is great, and you're looking at low thousands to get off the ground. If you could be even more frugal, depending on how kind of much of a perfectionist you want to be. The real cost comes in time and essentially your salary. So I've been doing it full time, and that's meant like being able to really dive in and commit to it and kind of keep building and iterating. And it's taken a lot of time to iterate. And so my salary, not that I'm paying myself a salary, is the cost.
Yeah.
Then you get into where I'm at now, the scale up and the meta side of things, and that can definitely be a cost. So there is cost associated to trialing and learning from an ad perspective and committing to enough ad spend to get decent data that you can kind of learn from and improve on. So that's the second wave of cost. So you can limit your exposure to the cost by speeding up that kind of cycle of getting live and getting your website ready and improved. You can either do that yourself if you're super talented, or you can outsource it, but then you front load the cost with other people. So I chose to do it myself, which meant it was slower, but it means if something goes wrong, I can fix it, or if a photo needs editing, I can edit it. So there's pros and cons. I'd say right now is a great time to start a business, and I think a lot more people will be starting businesses because the barrier to entry is lower, but the cost, yeah. I hope to hit profitability a lot sooner than I have done. Part of that is just because it does take money, particularly through advertising, to get to where you need to be. yeah, I don't know whether it would have been easier if I'd taken on investment straight away. If I was spending someone else's money, I might have been even more conservative than spending my own. I don't know. But it just does require some capital.
It's a funny one with external capital, isn't it? Because they're giving you it, expecting you to spend it,
Yeah,
and if you don't spend enough, they'll have a go at you. But
yeah,
likely, on the other side of things, they want to see that it's being spent in the right ways as well, and that's why they're trusting you as the founder and entrepreneur, to make those good decisions. Yeah, but I think that's really interesting to know what you've said there around like the salary is the cost. I think that's something that people need to understand about launching their own businesses, that if you're expecting to be paid a decent salary from day one, that's definitely not going to happen. It may come in time, but I always think about the old adage as well. Like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, like go with someone else. And that, it sounds like that's kind of at the point where you're at now. It's like you've gone fast and now you're at the point where you need to set up to go far, which is a really nice place to be in. It's a really pivotal point for you in your business right now, I would say.
yeah, I think so. And understanding that I have skill sets that I'm good at, and skill sets that I'm not. Finding the right partner that can maximize those areas that I would would gladly offload, is kind of, yeah, that's key. And I think that's going to what is going to kind of set the flywheel rolling for the next phase. So that's sort of critical. Yeah, knowing your limitations is definitely a factor. Try not to hold yourself back by trying to do everything is yeah, that can be a problem.
Yeah. No, again, that's a massive trend that I hear a lot of people say is like is knowing yourself. I think that's self-awareness of not trying to do everything yourself and being shit at it, basically. Because know what you're good at and lean into that. But there is an element of learning as well. Do try things, and see if you enjoy it or see if you're good at it, because you don't know until you try. But if you've got that self-awareness, and I guess with your experience in startups as well, you'll have seen great founders and great leaders do that with you. Offload those tasks to you with your skill set. Kind of coming to the end now, and I want to finish this in a slightly different way. Given what you know now, like what do you wish, even with your experience in Gusto and Graze, like, and even with like your own journey in Counter now, what's the one thing that you really wish you could do, but you just know you're not good at?
I've seen the explosion of sort of founder-led brands where, and it makes complete sense. So the consumers want to see the background of what's happening in the business. They want to learn about how to build a business and the ups and downs. I spent my whole 20s avoiding social media and kind of
Well
pulling
done.
back from it.
Well done.
So now suddenly I'm like, that would be very useful to be much more comfortable telling the story, explaining the product, doing a lot more on camera day in, day out. And I think, yeah, consumers love that because you're showing them that there's a real person behind the brand and that it's a real thing that people are putting care and attention into, but it doesn't come naturally to me. And it's always in the back of my mind as something to do, and then by the end of the day I focused on everything else and I haven't done that. So if I could upskill in that area or kind of really drive that home, and I would get better at it but continually do it, then I think that can leverage reaching an audience and communicating the values of the business, and doing it organically is so much better than having to pay to do it. But it's one of those things that isn't really me deep down. So I don't know whether I'm sort of swimming against the tide on that one. I don't know.
But potentially, I mean, again, you're kind of talking about something that's quite close to my heart as well, in terms of like that visibility piece. And I speak to a lot of people who are in the same boat as you. It doesn't come naturally to them. They don't naturally want to put themselves out there and things. And I always kind of end up saying the same thing. It's like, people package it up as confidence, but confidence is a very bundled term. You have like what I would call pre-confidence, which is your situational confidence, and then you've got evidential confidence. Your situational confidence is actually just courage. It's just courage to go out there and do it. And again, that's a bit of a bundled term, and there's definitely steps to getting courage to doing that. And then you've got evidential courage, which just comes with reps. just do the thing enough times to the point where you go, okay, this isn't scary anymore, and things like that. But that's probably for another time, another podcast potentially. But Bobby, this has been amazing. Really, thank you so much. I think you've really kind of like laid out the D2C playbook a little bit in such a short amount of time, and there's some really valuable some lessons that people can take from this. I guess if people want to go and find you and want to connect with you and they want to buy your coffee and have a look at what you're doing, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the website's the best place to go, which is www.countercoffee.uk. So yeah, go hit that up. We're also in Selfridges, but yeah, head to the website. That's the best place. We're on Amazon too. You can find us there. And then on Instagram, it's countercoffee.roasters. So yeah, we'd love to see some people heading over.
Fantastic. Bobby, thank you so much for your time. You've been very, very generous with it, and thank you for sharing the lessons. And all the best with Counter. I really do wish you all the best of luck. I think you've got something very unique there in terms of the caffeine adoption and management. I really, really, really like the sound of it, and I'll be having a look myself.
Nice one. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
Cheers, Bobby. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Cheers.